Hey everyone, this is Kate from Moonflower Moments. Welcome and welcome back. I'm here to share with y'all all of the decks that are really kind of making me excited for summer. So this is my summer deck list. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and get started. And I've kind of split these into like summer days and summer nights. I did that last year for my summer deck list, and I felt like that division actually really worked for me because summer days feel very different from summer nights. So I do live in South Louisiana. It gets very hot very quickly where I live. Some days, like, it is 90 degrees even before it is 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I definitely love decks like the Illusori Tarot. I'll leave a link in the description box below to this one. That kind of remind me of the intensity of that heat. So Illusory Tarot is a little bit disorienting in like all of the good ways. So it definitely reminds me of those moments where the heat is kind of ramping up and getting very, very hot. And so it's a deck that kind of reminds me that like, and kind of validates for me that it's okay to feel that kind of disorientation, especially because during the summer I don't work, I am a teacher. And so it's kind of also like a disorientation of like, well, what am I going to do with my time? Especially for like the first couple of weeks when I'm sitting at home and I'm kind of getting used to that sense of rest. So another reason that I definitely consider this to be a summer deck is because it is absolutely very fitting for like June. I think it is definitely a Pride Month deck. And so I enjoyed going through this deck and flipping through and see like the cacophony. Cacophony is not the right word. What is the word? Cornucopia? Cornucopia is the word I'm looking for. The cornucopia of just like bright rainbow colors. This palette to me is very exquisite because it definitely doesn't shy away from showing like all the beauty of the world and all of its vibrancy and like its loudness. And I greatly appreciate that as kind of a symbol for summer and what that is, because that is what summer is to me. It is very bright, it's in your face. It's to the point to where like everything is like very intense, but like summer is the season of putting yourself out there and going on adventures and like leaving the house and just experiencing what life has to give you. And I think this deck absolutely embodies that in all of the ways. So this was Illusory Tarot. All right, the next one I want to share with you is brand new to my collection. I actually still have it in the box because I haven't had much of a chance to switch it out to a bag yet, and that is the Tarot of Curious Creatures. This one is one that definitely made its rounds on YouTube, similar to all of Chris Ann's decks. And look at it go, I love it. So this is definitely a summer day deck for me because of two reasons, and they're kind of like oppositional to each other. So hear me out with this one. The first reason that this definitely feels like a summer deck is because this deck is so absolutely playful. During the summer, I hang out with a lot of different people. I go to a lot of different places. And so if I'm happening to give a tarot reading, I do like having a deck like this, which is not confrontational, that I can use for someone who is really kind of getting a reading for the first time, right? I think it's fun to have decks that are playful and kind of a little bit silly to kind of break the ice for people that are not used to what tarot is and might still have some kind of misconceptions. And so due to the nature that I do a lot of tarot readings during the summer, this is definitely going to be a deck that I like to use to kind of break the ice with those newer people that are just kind of getting a casual reading for the first time in their life. Another reason this deck really reminds me of the summer, aside from the color palette, because it is definitely a summery color palette, is the fact that this deck, from my own experience, does not like fuck around. So when I was reading with this deck for the first time, I had shuffled it for like 3 days straight, just kind of ambiently while like listening to an audiobook. Like every time I would sit at my tarot desk, I wasn't ready to read with yet, but I wanted to kind of shuffle it just to kind of like break it in, get it used to me, get used to it, etc., etc. And I did that for several days. And when I finally sat down to actually do a tarot reading with it, I pulled 10 out of 11 majors on my first reading, and I was like, holy fuck, this deck is definitely here to say something to me. And I think that's what summer is, because the sun is so high, because the days are so long, kind of nothing is hidden in the shadows, everything is kind of out there in the open. And so this deck is kind of the embodiment of the sun's energy, and therefore summer's energy for me as well. And I think it's cute, like Page of Cups, like it's a playful deck, which also like does not mince words. So that's been my experience with it so far. If y'all have it, I would love to know if that's been your experience with it as well. A dear friend of mine reached out and told me that this deck is one that doesn't fuck around. And so it seems to be the consensus from the people I've talked to that this deck is pretty blunt and straightforward and is like the sun in that way. All right, another deck I'm going to share with y'all to kind of embrace that summer daytime energy is going to be the Aztec Tarot. I absolutely adore this deck. I am a huge summer girl, but I'm also a huge fan of decks that definitely depict cultures that are different than my own. To me, that's really important, and to me, that's actually very summery in nature in itself, because for me as a teacher during the summer, I actually have time to engage with things that are outside of my immediate vicinity. And I have the opportunity to kind of explore, like, both physically and also mentally, things that are not usually in my scope of reference. And so that's one of the many reasons that I love this tarot, because it has a very clear point of view. The creator of this deck really wanted to make sure that Aztec culture was depicted with respect and with dignity and just shown in its fullest capacity and its fullest light. This deck happens to remind me a lot of a flower that I grow seasonally here in South Louisiana, and that is the blanket flower. So the blanket flower has like these rich red petals, but in the center it has like a yellow, it has like a little yellow center, kind of similar to like that yellow right there. And so to see that motif of color kind of carried throughout with like the reds that are darker, the reds that are lighter, and then also all of these yellows, it absolutely reminds me of that flower in my garden that I visit with almost every single morning when I'm drinking my coffee out in the garden. So this is a deck that also kind of roots me to place, and I really only have the opportunity to kind of enjoy that and to breathe that in during the summer when I do have time to like take my coffee outside and enjoy what's going on around me. But I love it. I love these colors. I feel like they are very summery. I feel like this is another deck that is a true like sun deck. Like, it is very direct in its approach to you. It's a very accurate reader from my experience with it, and I really love it. So the only other person I've seen kind of mention this deck was like Robin Reflections. So I'll leave a link in the description box below to her video of it, because I believe she did a walkthrough of this deck. Alrighty. The next deck I'm going to show is definitely a summer day deck, and that is going to be my Desert Illuminations. I'm so fucking excited to use this one during the summer. I can't help it. Like, I really am so excited to use this one. I waited for years and years and years for this deck to come into my collection. I almost paid like really absurd indie prices for it. It was one of my deepest regrets, is that this deck was still in print when I first got into tarot, and I slept on it because I was like, I'm not sure if I need an RWS clone. And like, I get it, like it really kind of is a clone, but it's also not in a certain way. Like, look at this Empress. She's not your usual Empress figure. And so I think that it can be chalked up to be like, oh, it is a clone, but like it's not. There are a lot of differences within this deck that make it a very unique point of view, such as, say, for example, the aliens, and a fun world to kind of get lost in. This deck is very Page of Wands to me, which in itself is very summery to me. It makes me want to go out. It makes me want to explore. It makes me want to see the world. And I just love it. Now, I do pair this deck with another favorite of mine, which also has like these beautiful kind of gilded edges. Here are Desert Illuminations. They have like these teal, and then Little Lizards has this kind of cyan color. So like I mentioned before, I passed on Desert Illuminations when it was indie. And then I promptly spent a very long time regretting that choice and regretting that decision. And so I ended up buying the Little Lizards Tarot, I think because I wanted something of a similar color palette to Desert Illuminations. And they really do have a similar color palette. Like, it's obvious that these two kind of exist within that same like color palette world. But I was kind of pleasantly surprised when I learned that I love the Little Lizards like by themselves. Like, yeah, they read really well with Desert Illuminations. But another thing that's really good about this deck is that all of the different cards have a different like lizard or reptile feature. And I really love that. And the deck very clearly explains like why they chose that particular type of creature for that card. And so these are my friends during the summer. I think they're very, very summery, and I'm excited to play with them more as the year goes on. All right, so that was Little Lizards and Desert Illuminations. Next, I have another that really does remind me of the summer days. I love this deck so much, and that is my Jupiter King Tarot. And I tend to read this deck with another oracle. They're kind of a bonded pair, so I'm going to show them together. And that is my Secrets of the Mystic Grove. Here we go, look at that. You can tell already that the colors speak to each other. So Secrets of the Mystic Grove is a very treasured deck in my collection, but it does have 3 keywords, which is not my preference. I do prefer decks that have 1 single keyword. And so sometimes when I'm doing on-the-go readings for clients, I like to bring these decks together because I like to have kind of like a simpler kind of RWS to kind of anchor what is going here with the oracle and kind of give me a sense of, okay, which word is the one that is most applicable to this situation. So like I said, I use these decks a lot when I'm on the go. I really love these colors. I just had to pause and look at them for a second. Clients respond really well to these colors during the summer months because I think it is fun. Like the JK Tarot is another great example of a deck that like wants you to leave your house. Like it is definitely another Page of Wands deck. It doesn't want you to sit around and kind of get lost in like, let's face it, kind of like the more boring, like centennial, like light yellows. Instead, it wants to have this bright fucking red yelling at your face, telling you, hey, what are you doing? Like, go out, have fun. And so I don't know if I have anything more to say about that other than the fact that this is just a really fun match. I find that the oracle can go very deep, especially if you read it with the guidebook. The guidebook has questions, which therefore allow you the opportunity to really kind of journal about the message that you're receiving, like this adventure, experience taking risk, and wish with the 8 of Wands. I love that. Whereas the JK Tarot is like more direct and in your face. And so like depending on which way you want to go, like if you want to have a more like direct reading or if you want to have something that's like slow and methodical and like perfect for journaling, this is really kind of the perfect pair that can go either way. And that is nice because while I'll primarily use this pair for client readings, like I do like to use this oracle when I'm journaling. And so I have a lot of time during the summer to journal. It is when I have the most leisure time. So it definitely fits that summer vicinity for me. Alrighty, so that was the Secrets of the Mystic Grove with the JK Tarot. All right, next let's do a fun one. This is going to be my Tarot of Trees. This deck actually inspired another deck purchase that's on this list, which I will share with y'all in just a little bit when I get to the nighttime. So this is definitely a daytime reader for me because it is pocket size. It is very accessible. It's on the go. It's let's throw down some cards and get a really fucking deep reading very quickly. And I don't want y'all to think that like I don't value like the slow methodical reading. I definitely do. But I think sometimes when we're reading for like a large amount of clients, because I do tend to read for festivals and such, it's always handy dandy to have something that is like so accessible, so pocket size, but also like in a way so fun. I say that, but I'm getting like all of the really rough cards like back to back to back. Okay, here you go. That Ten of Cups looks fun. And I think we need to have like both sets in our reading, but especially for clients that are kind of brand new, it's good to have a deck that like they can relate to, but also a deck that isn't intimidating to them. Kind of similar to the Tarot of the Curious Creatures. This is a deck that I would use for any point in time, any kind of reading, people that are brand new to tarot, people that are very experienced with tarot. I think that this is an incredibly versatile reader. And so this is one that I'm hoping to take on a lot of different adventures with me. I think the vibrancy of the color really reflects like the beauty of summer. I love that the majors are color coded. So we have this color for the swords. It's actually a really nice hierophant. Look how beautiful that is, that old tree. The Pentacles has this purple. Let me see where we're at. Yeah, so the Five of Wands has, I think the wands have the, let's see what color. The wands have the blue, and then the cups have this green. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, it's just a cute little fun reader. So this is definitely one of my summer decks for sure. Love it. I love that deck. All right, next I have another deck which is pretty brand new to my collection, and that is going to be the Tarot of the Kingdoms. This was sent to me from a viewer who just happened to love this deck, and it was a complete surprise, so I'm really thankful that she gave it to me. So I haven't done too much work with this yet, but I think that I'm very excited to receive it during the summer. These bright, absolutely like in-your-face colors remind me of the season so much, but also, like, full confession, I used to love playing mermaid when I was younger. So the fact that one of the suits, the water suit in particular, follows a kingdom of mermaids around is something that really touches very heavily on my heart. There's a fantasy element to this that I think is really beautiful, that just invites like childhood daytime play. So I really love it. I don't have much to say about it yet because we are still becoming friends with each other, but this is one that I never ever see on YouTube. So I'm curious if you have this deck. It is a red feather deck. I would love to know what your experiences are, what kind of work you do with it. Do you use it for daily draws? Do you use it for childhood work? You know, what kind of things do you read on with this deck? Because it's one that I can quickly see becoming a favorite in my collection, and I can't wait to hear y'all's thoughts on it. Look at that, beautiful for 2 of water. I love that. Alrighty. Next I'm going to show 2 decks from a very different world, and I think we might be getting to probably like, I think we're about 2/3 done. I was just kind of taking stock of like the many decks that are around me. So this is Slavic Legends, and then I have another deck that is totally in a different world from it, and it is the Tarot by Manzel. So why am I showing these 2 decks together? Other than the fact that they have the black borders, what they also have in common is the fact that they're both very richly detailed. So even though this is a deck shown from the Slavic point of view, it features Slavic folklore and legends, and this is created by a black creator. His name is Manzel. I'll leave a link down below to his Instagram. He wanted to create a RWS tarot, which was just like a basic RWS, but was created with entirely black characters. And so even though these feature 2 totally different regions, 2 totally different cultures, I do feel like they kind of go side by side because of the way that I feel when I read with them. So both of these decks are decks that I love and I fucking cherish so much because of the ability to sink into the artwork. Both of them are so incredibly detailed. I love how these 2 look together, actually. That when I read with them, it's kind of like a momentary reminder just to like slow down and breathe and enjoy what's around me. And I think that is what summer is, right? During summer, the flowers are at their fullest bloom. There are butterflies, you have the ringing of cicadas, you have things that are very intensely rich, very intensely loud, very intensely vibrant. And when you're working with artwork where no single detail was spared, like look at this Queen of Pentacles. Look at like the detailing on her dress and the texture of her dress. When you're working with details like that, look at that. It is a reminder to you to like slow down and to like fucking appreciate what's in front of you. So these are 2 of my summer days decks. Though I could definitely see them moving into the nights too because they have like this black border, but for me it's like, it's that richness. Like not only is it a summer day deck, but it's like a 2 p.m. deck when it's really fucking hot outside and like you don't want to be outside, but you choose to go outside anyway because it's the only time that like one of your favorite flowers is blooming. Like that's what it is. You know, the heat and the intensity are worth it because you get to experience this from it. I love how those 2 look together too. I think they are kind of similar-ish in color tone. Not quite, but almost. So that was Slavic Legend and Tarot by Manzel. And this deck is still available for purchase. It is indie, so I'll leave a link down to his information below. All right, next I have another set that really reminds me to live very intensely in the moment, and that is the Wild Whispers Oracle. And a deck that is not its perfect aesthetic match, but I really like it, so I'm going to show it here. It's William Blake. Y'all knew he was going to show up. Maybe it's a joke on my channel by now that I'm either going to show William Blake or Tarot Botanical. What other decks you'll associate with me? I do kind of want to know that, but you know, they're here and I'm here to show my practice. So I'm going to show you the decks that I'm going to be using. So William Blake is crazy intense and it reminds me of that fucking intensity of the summer. I love how like we have this similar shape here. And this is actually the Queen of Music would be the Queen of Water. So the Queen of Cups actually would be one to really kind of give into forgiveness. So I like how like this image is kind of reflected by, I guess it's the lyre that she has in her hand. Look at that, I love that. But William Blake is, it's the deck that makes me smile the most all the time because it's the deck that keeps me on my toes. And like, I think when we're talking about the intensity of what summer is and the brightness of that sun, you do definitely need to have a deck that kind of meets you there in that intensity, kind of similar to what Illusori does. And so I would say that William Blake and Illusori kind of exist within similar spaces to me. And sometimes that can become very overwhelming, but I like that validation of like, no, it really is like a lot going on at once. Your garden kind of is a jungle right now. Like even the thunderstorms, when you get that moment of reprieve from that heat, are like hot and intense and humid. And there's all of these things moving. But guys, all of those things are life, right? And I find that so enjoyable to witness and enjoyable to see. So the Wild Whispers Oracle kind of acts as like an anchor point for William Blake. So here we have Innocence, which is the Fool, and then we also have Play. So it kind of gives me the opportunity to think about this card in a different capacity. We have a lot going on here, like the guy is actually chasing his dog off the cliff, which is about to be eaten by, I guess that's an alligator. But this invites more playful questions, such as like, why is this guy naked? like what's going on here? Why is this guy naked at like the crack of dawn? Like, was he about to go like skinny dipping? Like, I just have questions for this. And it still has heavy words like boundaries to meet the intensity of William Blake. But I do find it to be like really reassuring to have that intent in mind. This is 3 of Swords, which in this deck is known as jealousy, paired with intent. That's actually really interesting. That 3 of Swords oftentimes comes from that jealousy. But you have to look at the intent of the behavior. You know, is the child meaning to make this man jealous? Honor, and then this always reminds me of an American flag. Like, I don't know, like this is probably my least favorite card in the deck, but not necessarily because of that association, but just because, I don't know, do y'all know any cards that like you look at and like all you can see is that one thing? Like, it's hard for me even to take time to kind of notice the other things here, like such as, for example, the stars, because I just go straight here and I'm like red, white, and blue, like American flag, it is what it is. But I guess paired with honor, I mean, connection with practice, and then the 3 of this would be Pentacles, wildness, and then childhood poetry, which would be wands. Beautiful, beautiful. So these are definitely hot, heavy summer decks for me. Now I also pair Wild Whispers with its sister. I literally just shuffled it and the same deck was on top. Look at that go. And its sister deck is going to be Radiant Wilds. I'm just going to show this briefly because I did have someone in the comments on one of my other videos ask to see this match. Here you go. So like, I mean, of course I'm going to use them together. Absolutely, I'm going to use them together. They were created by the same creator, and so I think that there is an intention to detail, which is really beautiful in this pairing. I think the way the creator uses shapes is really interesting. So like presence, and we have the 7 of Pentacles, so it's kind of this moment of like, be present in the building. You can see this building is like moving upwards. And this shape kind of reminds me of the shape that's going on here, like this square shape. So like be present in that building, the assessing, like be present in the progress, basically. Ease with the 2 of Swords. Look at this repetition. And then with the Queen of Pentacles, we have like all of these lines around, which are kind of reminiscent of what you would have like through the veins of plants, through the veins of leaves. Peace in the sun, very beautiful. All right, so that was Radiant Wilds with the Wild Whispers. All right, so next we're going to get into the nighttime ones. And to start us off, I want to share with you one of my favorite oracles, and this would be the Queen of the Moon Oracle. And this deck reminds me of the summer nights because, I mean, first off, it features nights, but also second off, like I said before, I don't have a lot of time during the school year to really kind of pay attention to the cycles of the moon. And that is such a shame because it's such an easy thing to do, right? Like you walk outside and you look up. But I really want to spend this summer being very present in the moon cycle. Last night was the strawberry moon, and even though it was raining, I did make an attempt to go outside and see it, and I did get to see it because it was shining so bright and it was so low on the horizon. But there's something about like the moon on a summer night which is just full of wonder you look up to the sky and you see the expansiveness of that. And I guess that's what summer is to me too, is like the sense of expansion, because you're able to kind of like, especially if you grew up like with the American school system, like you're able to kind of like shake it off and like be your own person, like separate of those academic achievements or your academic duties. If you happen to be an educator like me, like you get to be a person outside of that classroom. And I really like that sense of freedom that comes with that. So this is definitely a summer nights deck to me. It reminds me to look up in the sky and see that expansion. All right, next. So similarly to the sense of expansion, I definitely think the Flower Essences Oracle makes me feel the same way. I did edge this in black. It doesn't come like that. It usually is just white. And this was created by Rachel White with Totem Tarot. So I'll leave a link down to her information below, but essentially she plants all of these plants in her yard. So everything that she's using for these flower essences comes from her garden, which I find to be just so absolutely beautiful. I do a lot of plant work myself. I do a lot of flower pressings. I do bouquets, fresh bouquets. I study a lot of plants just by pulling tarot cards for them to try to understand the messages they're trying to teach me. Like, I do see plants as a teacher, and especially during the summer months, these guys are my teachers. I'm not spending a lot of time engaging with people the way that I usually am during the school year, but instead I really take that time and tune into the nature that's around me. But this reminds me of those summer nights where like I've played outside all day. I've kind of gathered a bunch of different plants. I open up my flower press and I'm working with plants that I pressed like last week or the week before, things that I've been studying very deeply in detail. And now here I am and I get to make art with it, right? And I think the color palette is very reminiscent of kind of those darker nights, but it's kind of witchy in the sense of like there's a sense of liberation here and there's a sense of freedom. And similarly to how like Rachel uses these plants to create this medicine, like I'm using these plants to create kind of my own medicine, my own like self-soothing, and kind of remind me and of like the lessons that these plants are here to teach me, but also like what can I get up to using these plants? How can I work with them on a deeper level than just like symbolic? All right, so that is, ooh, look at that. And here's a beautiful monarch with a Mexican sunflower. I fucking love Mexican sunflowers. So that is the Flower Essence Oracle. I'm gonna leave that here because I do want to pair with it briefly this deck, which is my ultimate summer night deck. This is the Tarot Landscapes. So I had a feeling that these would match pretty well together because of the jewel tones. And I do think, I dare say that I am right. So Shanna D was the one that pointed out that the tarot landscape actually is pretty fucking barren. So we only have like one animal in each card. Very rarely will we have like another one, if at all. I don't think that I think most of the time we just have like one. So this is the Five of Cups. So she said that it really reminds her of like a shadow work deck. And I happen to agree with it. I tend to do a lot of shadow work at night. And so I gravitate towards decks like this that are darker toned, but like still jewel toned and still like very vibrant and still very rich. That richness definitely reminds me of the summer. And I think that's reflected here in Tarot Landscapes. Especially when you pair it with, let me pull it with another oracle that I use. The Tree Ascension Oracle. Look at that match already. So similarly to the Flower Essences Oracle, the Tree Ascension Oracle reminds me to like go outside, to be present, to integrate those lessons that I'm learning from the plants around me. And I find especially during summer when I am away from humans, it is a really beautiful reminder to me that like I'm still engaging. Look at how fucking beautiful that is. It's so beautiful. I can't get over it. Like I can still engage with beings even if those beings aren't human. And so it's like Tarot Landscapes, through its kind of barren nature, invites me to do that shadow work. But Flower Essences, as well as the Tree Ascension Oracle, remind me that I'm not alone while I'm doing that. That I do have teachers, I do have guidance. And even if that is not coming directly from humans, so it could be, you know, I could always reach out to people. I have a really great support system in my life. that like sometimes I can embrace the stillness of what it is to kind of exist with myself, but then also recognize that I'm never quite by myself. Like even in this tarot room below me, I have cypress roots that are running directly below where my desk is. And I tap into that a lot, and I remember that a lot. So I don't know, these are kind of my nighttime summer decks. I think there's something about the richness here that is very compelling, that makes me want to dive in, and it makes me want to do the hard work on the nights where like my husband has gone to bed early and I have like an hour or two to really kind of dig into that richness. And I have the time to dig into the richness because it is summer. All right, so I'll stop it there. Look at that match. I can't get over it. This is the best match I've ever found. I just love it. All right. So those are my summer decks. I showed you the ones from the day, and I also showed to you from the night, but I hope you can tell through sharing these decks that many of the ones that I shared are definitely some of the favorites that are in my collection, but I just have like a very deep love and respect for summer in general. This really is one of my favorite times of the year. So I hope that all of you have a beautiful day, and I will see you all again next time.